This week, let's start off with an aesthetic critique, and we're going to talk about how to use it and when to use it. Aesthetic criticism is concerned with critically judging the visual makeup of a design. And these are things like the beauty of a work, or its ugliness, its style, its meaning, and its overall quality of design. Often, this is the starting point of any design's critique. And it's simple to do simply because you're only going to tell us what you can see or what you can research about the work. To do this, we'll start by describing the work. Who was the artist, if you can figure that out? Or what's the size and the medium? When was it created? Who is the subject? Can you point out any major defining elements of art, such as its line, shape, value, color, and texture? All of this goes into describing the artwork, and this is the first stage of an aesthetic critique. All of this is fine and good, but you can also go a little bit deeper and give further input into the finer artistic qualities of the work. These are the principles of design that are common in most artistic works, or these are also known as the Gestalt principles. Things like balance and unity, finding patterns and rhythm within the work, looking for focal points and how your eye flows through the design. There's also variety, proportion, and a bunch of other different principles that you can write about and talk about within this own critique. These artistic qualities are part of the analysis stage of the critique, and so you get to nitpick all of these details that you can find within the work. Moving beyond the objective realm of critique, we can move into a more subjective realm of interpreting and giving your own feedback. Qualitative data, in this case, is where you can interpret your feelings and try to find hidden meanings within a work. This requires much more thought because you need to be able to back up your critique with reasons and evidence. So some questions here to ask are things like, how does the work make you feel? Or what's the mood of the piece? Are there any symbols or metaphors that you tend to pick up on? Or can you theorize a meaning behind the work? Because you're trying to give voice to the meaning of this visual work, this stage of critique is known as the interpretation stage. You as the critic are acting as an intermediary between the artwork and others. This can be the hardest stage of a critique because so much of the thought needs to be done, but because it's subjective, it's the most flexible part of the critique. The final stage of a critique brings the evaluation full circle. You're going to be looking at the skill of the artist or the designer. When judging the skills of an artist or a designer, you need to project your own experiences into the work. If you've had experience creating art, then you know whether something took a long time or was effortless, or whether it's a good composition or a bad composition, or maybe it's something completely new and fresh, or maybe it's a rehash of something old. All of this is part of evaluating the skills of the artist. And the best way to evaluate something is simply to compare the works of this work to works of other artists, or to compare it to your own work in your own experiences. Once you're able to observe and critique each of these parts, then you're able to tackle the final question of an aesthetic critique. Is the work successful? In this last stage, success can be, is it beautiful? Or does it communicate? Is it effective? Or none of these things? So if you're trying to outline an aesthetic critique, it should flow like this. Start by describing the artwork. Then analyze its artistic qualities. Next, you can interpret any meaning or mood found within the work, and then evaluate the skills of the artist. Finally, summarize the success of the artwork. When doing this, remember to use good vocabulary, observe the work carefully, and back up your critique with any research you can find.